Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Michigan City City Hall, and it's a very proud day for myself and for the residents of Michigan City. From my very first day in office, and even prior to that, a state-of-the-art police station and a new facility for the men and women of the Michigan City Police Department has been a high priority. Public health and safety is and will always be a high priority of mine in Michigan City because of everything we do with our investment in our community. Every dollar we invest, it is so important that people feel safe, they are safe, and that our neighborhoods are continuing to improve in public safety, and crime reduction is always also a high priority. As I said earlier, that it's been a high priority of moving this police facility forward. With the whole process started 3 years ago, and our first, I guess, mission was to find a site. Once I worked with the police administration and others in the community, we determined, working with school officials also, because they had a dilemma at the Eastport site. They had a building that was a liability for them. It was, they were insuring, they were still maintaining, and there was also some illegal activity that had happened on that property, and they had some issues. So we reached out to the school system, worked with them to get that building from them, and I would say that the first hoop was that they can't just give away a school building. We had to go through some special legislation downstate, which I would like to thank Senator Arnold, Scott Pilaf, Karen Talion, and State Rep Dermody for their assistance in getting that building and that facility and that property to the city of Michigan City. In that workings, we also have provided a resource officer free to the school system for 5 years, which was another way we were reaching out to working with the schools. And of course, many people know that we have police officers that stop in each and every one of our schools each day, each week, for 15-20 minutes, meeting with students, principals, and teachers, and we're very proud of that program also. And many city departments work within the school system as far as mentoring, giving presentations, and things of that nature. And right now, quite honestly, the city of Michigan City and my administration is cooperating with the school system in regards to assisting them in their technology needs over the next 5 years here in Michigan City. So that's a priority of ours. We'll be working with the City Council, working with our redevelopment commission. I spoke to you that it was always been a priority. The police department, in my mind, is one of the most crucial departments of the city as your city moves forward. The Eastport site itself, there's many in the community that know that that's approximately a 7-acre campus there. We will continue to allow public use there. Once the police facility is in place, we plan upgrades to possibly having a walking track there, also having some upgrades to the basketball court. We want this to be a public-friendly facility in the neighborhood. And I would point out the impact of a $13 million investment in the Eastport neighborhood. It shows that the city believes in this area, believes in this neighborhood, and that we're investing, and so we hope that that will be contagious, that it will help the residential portion of the neighborhood, but it also may assist us with business along that corridor, where over the last several years we have invested over $10 million in the Michigan Boulevard corridor. And I think I'd be remiss not to mention that our partners in this, and it was very creative in our various funding methods of getting this to the point where we're at today, where we can actually finance this. And Redevelopment Commission has been a great partner with us. The commissioners have worked with us. And an important concept that I'd like to say is that once the existing police station has been taken down, has been demolished, that you have freed up some very valuable property in the city of Michigan City that will be ready for redevelopment, and that we will be able to get back on the tax rolls and get more tax dollars into our community, which sustain our police department, our fire department, and all of our various city departments that are so crucial in our day-to-day lives. Now, we have several guests here today, but First, I'm going to invite, it's my honor to invite Chief Police of Police, Mark Swistek, who is doing an exceptional job with his men and women each and every day, and I'm proud that he is my police chief, and we will continue to protect this city and continue to bring down crime in Michigan City is our goal each and every day. So with that, Mark Swistek.
Thank you, Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon. Before I start, I think it's very important for me to thank everyone that I personally have worked with on this project. It is a great honor to have the support of Mayor Meer. I want to personally thank him for all of his hard work throughout this process. To our City Council, two of which are here with us today, Councilwoman Pat Boy, who has been by our side throughout this entire process, and Councilman Rich Murphy, who is also with us here today. I truly appreciate all of the council membership's support on this. To our partners at the Redevelopment Commission, from Kenny Barrett, the president, to Larry Silvestri, who's here with us today. Larry's been a great resource for us as well, and I really appreciate all the support I've received from them. And then most importantly, to American Structure Point. What a team. I can tell you this has been my third attempt at getting us a new building for our men and women of this department, and American Structure Point has truly been an honor to work with. It's kind of the dream team we put together. So Chris Murphy's here today with us, and both Mike Hoopengardner and Brandon Hoopengardner as well. Thank you for all of your support. And then lastly, to the men and women of the police department and to my administration for all of their patience of everything that we've gone through personally for the last 14 years to get to where we are today. I'd like to take a moment to go down memory lane and to give you a historic review of the Michigan City Police Department. We were established in 1879. 1879, this department was established with just a handful of members. From 1879, they had no working quarters, no headquarters to call home. Then, in 1907 to 1964, we found a home, and it is that of the LaPorte County Courthouse that sits in our city currently at the intersection of US 12 and Washington. Our entrance was located on the east side of the building. We had a handful of officers at the time. As you see here, there's 15 officers that were present that worked out of that facility. They had no cars, they had no radios, had limited equipment, but they made the best of that facility that they had for the men and women of that department at the time. 1964, prior to that, 1962, then Mayor Fetter, Police Chief Fetter, decided to start building, along with the City Council, a new station for its members of their public safety department. 1962, the department started at our current site at 102 West 2nd Street, and in 1964, we moved into our present home, the home that we have been in for well over 50 years. 2001, on April 22nd, we sustained a devastating fire at the Michigan City Police Department. It was started by a female inmate in one of our padded cell in our detention area. It was a devastating fire. It crippled our department for over a year. And on that particular day, moving forward, we realized that there was a need for a new department. We had grown from only a handful of officers in the early 1900s to when we moved in our facility in the early 1960s, there was approximately 50 to 60 staff members. I now have over 100 staff members, and we have outgrown our current facility. So then in 2001, it was decided that the funding wasn't there to build a new facility. We were going to renovate, and we were going to make the best, once again, of our current facility. Police Chief at the time, Gene Simmons, renovated our building, and to this day, we still suffer the devastation from that fire. We have soot that's in between the layers of our ceilings. We have ever-growing mold. We have unhealthy conditions that our employees have sustained since 2001, and now the employees can look forward to the dream of realizing they have a new facility on the horizon. 2006 all the way up to 2008, we revisited this project under the leadership of Mayor Charles Oberle. At that time, it was decided that the department was in need of a new station, and once again, this was our second attempt to try and secure a new facility for our members. That was tabled at the time, did not move forward. All throughout those negotiations, city council members, city officials took the opportunity to tour our facility, and they realized that we had a deteriorating foundation, that we had a building facade on the exterior that was crumbling. Water was seeping in the building through our foundation. a lack of energy efficiency when you look at the heating and air within our building and the windows that are in the facility currently. Lack of overall operational efficiency for the members of our department. We had many staff members that were forced to work in cramped quarters, that are still working in cramped quarters located in the basement of our facility with no windows and poor ventilation at times. And most importantly, it's a non-compliant ADA facility, which is a concern to all of us in city government. Mold, as I stated earlier, is one of the big concerns in our building. And then the cramped working spaces. Our investigative division is crammed into a small area where we now have the most investigators that we've had in the history of our department. And all of these things are now going to be changed with the future of our new facility. Ladies and gentlemen, we've taken a moment to take a historic trip back to where we started in the early 1900s, 1964 to present. And it gives me great honor at this time to reveal what your new public safety facility for the city of Michigan City will look like. I'd like to thank American Structure Point for the two renderings that they've brought with today. The first rendering to my left here shows the public entryway near the American flag of what our facility will look like. And to my right is a rendering of an overview of the courtyard, our security detention area on the left, and then the upstairs is mainly our investigative division along with the administrative wing of our department. Again, I'd like to personally thank Ron Meer, our mayor, for picking up the ball and carrying us across the finish line, as he often likes to refer to as his sports analogies. This was a very important project. Again, to myself personally, like I said, to be on this committee for 3 consecutive times, it is now my passion to see this through, to secure this facility for our staff. To kind of give you an outline where we are moving forward as of today. March 24th, we will be placing this project out to bid to the public. On April 28th, the bids will be due back to our city clerk's office, and at the same time, we will be opening the bids and putting them before our Board of Works of Public Safety after we do the reviews. Construction will begin late May, early June of this year. I think it's important to note, as the mayor touched on earlier, that this is a major economic development for that Boulevard corridor, which is one of our 2 major entryways into our community. I've spoke with many of the residents, I've spoke with the business community near that facility, and I look forward to this completion of this project in the very near future. I'd like to take a moment as a personal note before I introduce Brandon Hoopengardner with American Structure Point. For me personally, I've been sometimes criticized and said, well, you're very passionate about this project, and in fact I am. And the reason I'm passionate for it is because I'm a 2nd-generation police officer. And today it's a great honor that my father, John Swistek, who's 78 years old, is in the back of the room with us, who began back in 1961. 1961, this was his home. This is where he started. He also at that time looked forward and watched the construction of our current facility, and then he walked into that facility in 1964, and he worked in that building from 1964 until his retirement in 1984, when he had retired and I was still in high school at the time. It was a dream of mine to follow in my father's footsteps, to become a law enforcement officer, to serve the citizens of this community, as it is a dream, and ironically, that the 2 representatives that we have with us from American Structure Point today is a father and son combination. We have Michael Hoopengardner and Brandon Hoopengardner, who have been the design and architectural team that have worked so diligently on this project. And I think it's kind of ironic that we have the father and son team that's been put together by Structure Point to assist us in this project. So again, it gives me great honor to see this project through, and at this time, I would like to introduce Brandon Hoopengardner from American Structure Point.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Mayor Ron. I know this has been an exciting project for us. I mean, the past couple of years, just taking to get to know you guys, a little bit about what's going on in this community, the future of this community. And it's been a real pleasure knowing this community wants to do the right thing, to do what's the best interest for public safety, but also what's really going to be the best thing moving forward for this community. So it's been a pleasure getting to know the team, working with all the officers, really scrubbing this program, making sure that we're spending every last dime as most efficiently and as effectively as we possibly can. and also looking at kind of the long-term budget for the project as well, how we're going to be maintaining this facility over the next 50 years is honestly what we want to do. Looking back to the original facility and that lifespan that was able to give these officers a great home for 50 years. But knowing, kind of touring that facility, seeing this facility, how much space you've managed to kind of maximize and utilize, putting a lot of officers in there, we are thrilled to kind of offer a new facility for this police station. And two kind of key driving concepts behind this police station. This courtyard has really been kind of a driving piece for this, kind of a space that everyone can kind of gather around, this outdoor amenity, semi-public courtyard space. It also services the need for this security aspect that Mark mentioned. So we've actually leveraged community aspects. So a lot of private homes have a public and a private portion to this. A lot of these homes in this neighborhood are backed up to an alley space, kind of the back of house area, and this front of house, this is kind of their personal private yard space. So we're trying to take reference of that pattern language around this area and try to make sure that's sensitive to the context and that it does leverage any of the amenities around it as well. So one of those amenities being a future park. I know Mark's been very passionate about how we connect this future park that's an asset for this community. So there's a lot of the spaces are actually looking out over this space so that anyone, if they're working out in this facility or training in this facility, if their eyes on this neighborhood, keeping it safe and secure. And it also takes a very large team. So just the two renderings that you're seeing here today, I'd say it's a team of a dozen or so people. So it's been a pleasure working with my father and your team as well, Mark. You have the best officers here in town, so it's not every day that we get to work with a mayor and your officers to such a great aspect. I know we've worked with other clients before, and they don't always want to do the right thing. Many of them do, but to actually have that right spirit, the right vision for this community is fantastic. But we've been grateful to be working with applied engineers as well on the mechanical electrical side, and global here locally too in the civic side. And then we're also fortunate to have a security expert roster on hand as well. So a huge team of experts are coming together to really make sure that this is a state-of-the-art facility. And we can go into deeper links into all the little technical pieces of that. So I'd imagine at that period in time, if there's any questions, comments, feedback, unless you guys want me to continue talking about anything else on the architectural side, we can. I love talking about this. I'm just as passionate as Mark when it comes to the architecture, so we can go on and on and on. Yep. Sure. Let's throw this down.
Actually, at this time, we would open it up for questions from the community, press, maybe even Sergeant Yagelski has a question about where his office is going to be located specifically or something. But yeah, if there's any questions or comments or anything, we would take them at this time. Yes, sir.
Any kind of green considerations in the building?
Quite a few. That's a great question.
Go ahead.
Actually, the primary program, the way this was developed as a two-story structure, was to take advantage of the site topography. You know, in the old Eastport School had kind of two tiers, so you'd be able to leverage the top of the knoll as well as the bottom of that hill. So actually, the way we've programmed this with Mark's team is to make sure that any 24-hour operation is actually on this ground level, and then the second floor is actually kind of any 8 to 5 kind of office type support space. So really, that's going to help us sequester any of that electric load kind of to that first floor on that 24/7 basis. So we're kind of lightening the electric load on the second floor. Also taking advantage of the green infrastructure around that area. So not just the new median, the ability to use pedestrian walkways from a site location, but also this park amenity that's going to be there in the future in the south portion, as well as the courtyard space has been a big green amenity. You also notice a lot of windows. We've kind of strategically placed windows in an area where they're going to be of maximum benefit. So anywhere you're seeing more of a brick space is actually representing kind of more of a support amenity behind that. So a lot of the processing, locker rooms, things don't need as much natural daylight. We've kind of put in certain areas where they don't necessarily need a lot of heavy windows. But anywhere we have actual offices or individual private offices, those areas we want to have as much natural daylight in those spaces as we can. So we limit the electrical load on that space. If Applied was here, we'd have them tell you a little bit more about the mechanical systems. They're also doing some very cool, sustainable things for us. So we're trying to be as sustainable as we possibly can within the budget that's been established by the community. Good question.
Also, I would just mention along that lines, there is going to be, a small retention for dealing with stormwater and things. So we're very conscientious of the stormwater issues at the site and things of that, and then we've already spoke of some of the future recreational amenities that will be put at the location. Other questions? Yes.
I remember the fire that the chief was talking about. I actually was in that cell block the morning after the fire. It was pretty inadequate then. Can you talk a little bit about the detention area and what you'll have as compared to what you have now?
And specifically, yeah.
Do you want to hit that one, or do you want me to hit that one?
Probably both of us.
Number of cells and the type of cells, group holding.
Very good question, Ron. One of the things in our detention area is we look to make sure that we're compliant, and we're working with one of the most professional people we could, Rosser International. When I first sat down with the structure team in Rosser International, we're now going to have the availability to have cameras monitoring our prisoners, which we don't have now. We're going to have extremely safe cells for the detention area, as well as for the overall security of the building. So Rosser was excellent to work with this team. I think that was a great addition by bringing them on board. They're going to help us from anywhere from getting inside the building, how we move throughout the building. Certain doors cannot be opened within the building if another door is already opened. So the security of this facility is going to be state of the art. And it's going to be a learning curve for us, because right now we've got a lot of those concerns in our current building. So I think that we're really going to see some improvements with the security overall. And then Brandon could probably touch on the layout back there that we did as well.
Yeah, actually, that was one of those areas that, working between our teams and with the officers, we do a lot of this in 3D modeling, so we can kind of navigate through that space and see exactly what it's going to look like. So when we're talking about active security systems like cameras, Rosser's been doing a great job helping us with that regard. But then there's a lot of passive design solutions where we're looking at kind of a raised platform area so that anyone serving in that processing area can actually see every single cell seated from one seated position. So that's kind of one of those design strategies where currently that's not in place. And it should really help make that a more secure space. Yep, additional drainage. There's some ways we've started thinking too about long term. There's quite a few employees that really want to make sure that this thing's really easy to maintain long term, which we think is a great strategy, and flexible too. So as the needs of the station change and evolve over time, whether it becomes the data, the security that is flexible, even the actual cells could be flexible and moved if ever needed. So in terms of being able to clean those, that there's going to be hose bibs available to clean out those cells, readily available, padded cells in there as well as a group holding cell to hold and detain larger groups of individuals. So if there's a big beach event or something, that you could bring a lot of these people to this facility quickly, only if needed. I know we spent a lot of time on that area, so.
When do you think it's moving date?
You want to hit that one?
Yeah. If we can start construction it's much easier talking. That's why I brought him.
He's a much better speaker than I am. We think this is probably a 14 to 16 month construction duration. So if we start in June, you know, we're looking out into 2016, fall, early fall.
Right. Well, the old existing police station will be ultimately back on the tax bill, which is a win-win.
You know, I think that's important to mention, you know, that the old news dispatch building and the current police station will be redeveloped, and that'll be another exciting process to see exactly what is proposed there, which you know, investors from the private sector come in. I mean, that's definitely crucial strategic property on our lakefront, and you know, I think that any of the communities, whether it's in Northwest Indiana or throughout the state of Indiana, that you see that are progressing, that are on the rise or improving, is that the lack of crime, or I guess a progressive police department that is not only doing police work, but also doing public outreach, so that they're not just seen as a a force in the community that's enforcing the law, but they're also seen as a partner in the community. And that needs to be pointed out, is that yes, this site is extremely important to where it's going to be located, but our police department, our administration has been very proactive in with community outreach. So, and that goes back to the officers being in the schools, all the various events, and the youth academy, the adult police academy. There's just a lot of outreach going on, and I just touched on a few, but we want that to be a friendly site. It's not only a police station in our community, it's not only a $13 million investment in the neighborhood, but also that, because you're going to get more benefit of working with the police and our community working together, we're going to get more benefit in our community, and I think that will assist us in our progression. Yes, Adam. Yeah. Well, I'll speak to it, and then I'll let the chief speak to it a little bit. To the second part of your question, as far as the location and some criticism that it's not centrally located, you know, as we have evaluated that, and there was a lot of conversating and meeting, and not only with the police administration, but also with businessmen in the community, also with our council members, and you're right, everyone didn't agree on that. But in this today's age of technology, and that the police officer is getting into their vehicle at their home and maybe going right to their district that they patrol and things of that nature. So the central part of it wasn't quite as important that it be placed right in the center of the city. I mean, there was suggestions of having it far south side, far east side. I wanted it to personally have an impact on the Eastport community, where we have had some issues. And I think that it also, like I say, this emphasis of showing that there's an investment in that area, that if the city isn't afraid to invest $13 million in that area, and some of that comes from conversations with businessmen in that area, in that corridor, and we're working on the Michigan Boulevard corridor as far as some more demolitions, and also assisting business folks in there. And I'll let you talk, Chief, to the first part of Adam's question there.
This was a simple one for us when it came to the site location. We simply had two choices. We either needed to find a location on Franklin Street, or we needed to find a location on Michigan Boulevard. Those two main thoroughfares into our city, that was the only locations that we needed to place a building such as this quality. We don't want to take a major public facility and stick it in some neighborhood. Nothing against the inner city neighborhoods, but you want to showcase a building like this. You want the visitors, the citizens of your community, to know this state-of-the-art facility is there, and this is an investment of $13 million into our community. So for us, when we began that assessment, there was no location along Franklin Street that we could find. Franklin Street has seen its fair share of developments. There are many new developments that have been going up along that corridor. And when we looked at the Michigan Boulevard corridor, and we seen the school that was sitting there, underutilized, sitting vacant, the school system, as the mayor indicated, needed the assistance to remove that off of their mechanical needs and maintenance needs. And then to look at the campus, 7.75 acres. We were excited about that. Where else in the city could we find almost 8 acres that we could develop into a public safety campus, a government campus more or less? There are future plans. If we need to move other city buildings onto that site, we have the room to do that. I'm probably most excited as well about what the opportunities ahead of us are for the green space behind that facility. I foresee a quarter-mile walking track similar to the Strebel Pond that we currently have on the city's west side. I foresee playground equipment in the middle of that for the city's children to enjoy, basketball courts being revitalized there, a soccer field, many other amenities that I'd like to see placed on this green space. Just this past Sunday, I was in Walmart. I had a gentleman walk up to me and he says, "Chief, I live near Tremont and Cleveland, and I'm concerned what's going to happen once you move in there. I walk my dog every day at the Eastport site currently." I said, not a problem. I says, you can continue that. I want this to be a public, safe zone for you to come to. But there is one thing. I just ask that you pick up after your dog. And we both kind of chuckled, and he says, you know what? I'm looking forward to you guys moving into our neighborhood because we need you there. The second, the impact to crime. Adam, as you know, we have mobile offices. Our cars are more or less mobile offices that we work out of each and every day. So the location of this this facility doesn't need to be centrally located like the mayor said. I believe this is the right place. I know this is the right place for us because Michigan Boulevard needs these improvements. And this is only the start of what's to come for that Michigan Boulevard corridor. I think once investors see this $13 million project underway, that they're going to start focusing at the old site of the Chrysler dealership at 11th and Michigan and some of the other underutilized properties along the boulevard to make sure that they get in early and take advantage of the opportunities that are ahead along that boulevard corridor.
I would add too, even a lot of those points too, the facility's trying to respond conceptually to a lot of those aspects. So we're really showing kind of a gateway beacon along Michigan Boulevard into downtown so that this thing lights up and really is an asset to that community. So a lot of the things that Mark and Ron are both talking about, this facility is trying to leverage it so it's not kind of a dark hidden box tucked away. It is something very visible. So if someone is injured or needs the assistance of public service, they know exactly where to find it.
Yeah, it did help Adam also that we already owned the majority of that portion of property, so there wasn't this, large purchase or an appropriation that have to go in front of the city council purchasing a piece of land. And we have all along had conceptual drawings and things to include a potential city hall sometime in the future. There's that conversation you'll hear off and on about, have we considered it? Yes, we have considered that to happen in the future. This building currently is still a very usable and feasible building, and as redevelopment works in this area, there's multiple discussions that maybe City Hall should continue to stay based in your targeted TIF district and redevelopment area. So those conversations will go on, but we do have more land that's available if necessary there. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Has there been any interest shown in facilities prices, oil prices dealership as of this point? Has there been any interest or any inquiries about perhaps purchasing at today?
We have had conversations, so the question is the old Chrysler dealership located at 11th and Michigan Boulevard. We have had off and on conversations with the ownership there through the Michigan City's Board of Works, and they've addressed some things aesthetically and things, but definitely that's a building that we'd like to see demolished, the city would. I also believe that there may be some environmental issues on that property, and there's some remediation that would have to take place there. That was during our initial discussions. That was a property that was brought up as far as a police station location. So I mean, it was discussed, but that's ongoing. Actually, I had a conversation with one of the Board of Works members this morning about that very property. So I mean, ideally, I'd like to see that building demolished, any remediation work that needs to be done there, and then ultimately somebody from the private sector or something put a business in there again. A good question, though. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today, and I look forward to seeing the foundations put in for this new police station for Michigan City. Thank you, everyone.